All tutorial related PNGs and upcoming fan art projects will be available on my Patreon. Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial video. In today's video we're going to be looking at a couple different outfits to help you along in your drawing journey. I'm going to do my best to keep this pretty simple so you should be able to follow along at any skill level. The goal will be not to only teach you how to draw these outfits, but to show you the techniques and methods so that you can draw whatever outfit you want with whatever material. So with that, let's get right into it. To begin, start by pausing this video and copying down this figure. I don't want to get stuck in the weeds of teaching you how to draw figures when I have other tutorials for that. So for the actual clothes, we just need to start with a model. All right, so I'm going to commentate this because my mic arm broke and it just proved to be too much of a pain to record or try to like draw on a tablet with my mic just in my mouth basically. So we're just going to commentate this. So for right now, I'm just sketching over adding in the waistband. This waistband is a little bit low. I actually end up moving it upwards because I wanted to have more high riding jeans. But at first in my vision, I was like, well, I'll have like low jeans. But so we are going to move this up. It's still fine to draw, but it's going to get moved up. Either way, I'm now adding the seam just right around there where the zipper and the button is and stuff. So there's the button. Really just following with this waistband the curvature of her body and then adding in our little details like the belt loop, stuff like that. You can really start wherever you wanted, but for me, I like starting down at the pants because this will be the simplest portion of this outfit. A lot of these jeans are just going to be form-fitting. For here, I'm just sketching in all of the sort of wrinkles in between the legs there, all the clothing folds. And here on the side of the legs is going to be the outer seam. Adding these seams is very important on your jeans because it makes them look a lot more rigid. And obviously, if you look at a pair of jeans, a lot of them have visible seams. And it's a place where the pocket can kind of feed into and give it a nice little shape. Just adding in the pockets on both sides here. Adding in some little seams around the edges. So now finally going up to the top. This is kind of a loose, flowy shirt. So at first I just went ahead and sort of sketched out where it's going to rest on top of her boobs there. And then trying to just loosely get it to fall off of her breast. And then kind of like flow it out. Now, originally I was like, oh, I'll do like a crop top. But then I just had a greater vision of what if I just bring the jeans up and tuck the shirt. Probably gonna have to cut this portion because I now realize, like after the fact, that yeah, I didn't make a crop top. So, but certain areas, like right here, this sleeve stays. So yeah, keeping the sleeve super loose, keeping it baggy, adding just a little bit of a seam there at the edge. On her other arm there, we don't see her arm, but you know this sleeve is loose enough that I just went ahead and poked it in on the side there because might as well. It's so loose you can see it. And for here, I mean, I'm just kind of sketching in, you know, some folds. We want to depict folds between the chest where the material is stretching between her boobs, but then we want other folds beneath them where the material is falling down from the chest. That's why we have two different folds there, two different types of wrinkles there. So just go ahead and sketch both of those. She's got like kind of a frilly top portion there, so this sketching portion of that is super simple, just add little bumps basically. And then here we go. So crop top has been done away with, and I raised the hip portion here, or the waistband, and now I'm tucking it in. So for a loose shirt like this, go ahead and really keep that bottom portion real baggy. Because it's so loose there at the bottom though, because she's a skinny character, it needs to tuck in there at the waistband. So keep it nice and wide, adding lots of little bumps and ridges. Here's the completed sketch. For this, I just went ahead and lowered the opacity on the actual figure so that way the outfit stands out more. Really, the key takeaways is using her actual legs for the outer areas on the jeans. Just make sure as you go through them that you'll add little tiny bumps every now and then to signal where some clothing folds are. You really just want to keep in mind the weight of the clothes. So yeah, she's got kind of like a loose, flowy shirt, but it's tucked in. So all that extra material that would just be floating around at her waist is instead tucked into her jeans. So keep it nice and bunched up. Don't keep it skin tight for this type of outfit. take a moment, pause the video, try to get your sketch to look similar to this. If there's any corrections you need to make, just do them now, and we'll move on to the next step. Just like last time, go ahead and pause the video, mimic this figure, and we'll use this as the base for our gym outfit. All right, so onto the gym outfit here. So this time, again, just kind of sketching in the waistband here. Just for what reason, starting from the bottom up. It's probably because these none of these shirts that I'm drawing or tops are really coming over the pants. So just starting with the pants because there's nothing in the way and they're going to be the easiest to draw. Really sketching in a lot of details for the folds here, because even though these leggings are really tight and they're just basically following her figure, you still want to have little sketches for the actual clothing folds and seams and stuff like that. Go ahead, sketch those in. More folds. Just adding more folds around there. This one I'm just adding a little detail here just so it's more visual. Just trying to break up having like a plain skin tight leggings. Just adding like basically little white stripes around the side. Just sketching those in right there. Gonna end up changing the design here, just kind of bringing it out a little bit just so it's a little bit more interesting. And just make sure that you follow the curvature of your character for that. You want it to be going around her body. Same for this chest portion here too. Following the curvature of her body for the lines here, we still want to have sort of a form-fitting, skin-tight top here. Still add in our little folds there in between, then giving it kind of a nice sort of band here, keeping it nice and tight to her body. You can use whatever little logo you want. I was lazy. This is a gym outfit, so I just wrote gym. However, with this character, I am going to go ahead and add like a super loose, baggy sweatshirt on her. And this is going to be a pretty thick sweatshirt as well. So for a lot of these sort of clothing folds, they're not going to be super, thin and tight, sharp lines. They're going to be really big and sort of baggy. Keep this area on the top of her arm relatively close to her arm. It's still a thick material, so it's going to have some distance, but really the weight of the material is falling down away from the top of her arm. So keeping it baggy around her pit, keeping it baggy, in the sort of crease of her arm there. Just going ahead and sketching in some more of my clothing folds. And then just going in here, I'm going to leave it open for reasons. So you don't need to just, add in some of the thick material here around the back there, around the traps. And just sketching in the material kind of folding away and around her chest. At first I was visualizing like maybe adding like a hoodie or something, but I chose not to. So that's why you saw me think for like 0.1 seconds and then move on. Again, just kind of sketching in the actual opening of the material here. So adding the outer region, and then I'm just connecting that to her body with the inside portion of the jacket that would be visible. And then just basically repeating that over on the other side. However, with this side, you're mostly only going to see the material on the inside of the jacket. So I have just a little fold. All right, so here's the completed sketch. I went with this outfit because I thought it would be fun to show you a great contrast in different materials. So you have sort of the traditional form-fitting leggings and gym top, but then I like breaking up that sort of vibe by giving in a thicker, looser sweatshirt. Really, the key notes is just like with our other character, Skinny Jeans, the areas where the material is really just skin tight, just go ahead and use your actual figure. Just kind of sketch and trace out some little bumps and little ridges every now and then where some folds will happen. Other than that, when it comes to the sweatshirt, just like in the previous one, make sure you pay attention to the weight of the material itself and how it's going to fall. Take whatever time you need to make any adjustments to your figure, and we'll move on to the next step. For our last figure today, just go ahead and mimic this one. We just want to have an anime woman kind of leaning towards us. All right. Order of operations here. I like to start with the uppermost layers for the most part. She's leaned forward, so a lot of her shirt is going to be above her skirt. And then what's above the shirt? Well, her collar. So starting with drawing a pretty simple collar, we want to have a nice little ridge there just to show where the collar's kind of folded back. So that's why there's two lines there on the inside. And I'm just trying to connect it and give it a nice little square shape. Really, for this, it's really helpful to follow a reference just because how you get that little shape there where the button ultimately is going to go and how it folds and connects into the rest of the collar can be kind of a tricky shape to just into it. So I'd really recommend following a little reference. Obviously, if you're following this video, this is going to work because I used a reference. So I am confident that this is going to look right once I'm done making my little adjustments on the sketch here. Keeping it nice and thin there before it kind of comes into a triangle shape for the edge of the collar, as well as for where the button goes. It has kind of like a little square reinforced spot, because you got to remember around these buttons, since you're going to be pulling and tugging on them and doing stuff like that, the material there is going to be reinforced, going to be a little bit thicker. Now just going ahead and adding in the opening on the shirt. I'm going to keep this, relatively safe for work here, so I'm not trying to have it wide open, but this is still an anime woman. We want to get just a little cute with it. So I'm going to go ahead and open the shirt just a little bit. Add in our button, which is, fighting for its life to keep this bad boy covered. So adding a lot of little seams there. Adding a little cheeky opening over there too. Just why not? Then go ahead and add in your seams. Add in the wrinkles, stretching across the chest. And just continuing down our little, button portion there. Now I can actually go up and add the buttons. That button's a little bit too low, and I decided I don't feel like drawing a bunch of buttons, so I just moved it up because I'm lazy. And then just go ahead and add in the seams there. Again, that's a reinforced portion of the shirt because there's a lot of tugging on the buttons and stuff. You don't want that to rip. That's going to be a thicker material, and I'm going to highlight that by adding some seams around it. And then I do change this design because it looks ultra sus, but add in a little slit for where the button goes, and it will change. And then for this, I'm just sketching out the bra here. The bra is not going to be visible in the finished piece, but these white sort of office material shirts are semi-transparent. If you're not wearing something under them, then you're just going to have a little bit of your skin showing. So for our office lady, we are going to have just a little tiny poke through of the bra's color in the finished piece. For this, I'm just sketching it out. It doesn't have to be a perfect bra design. This is obviously not anything crazy, but I just want it as a visual placeholder so I know where to put the coloring. And then here I'm just adding the seams that go across the actual shirt. On the other side here, I just start with the pocket because ignore the fact that I just put the seam through the pocket, but that's just to help me visualize it. But the pocket is put over the shirt, so you're not actually going to see the seam going over the pocket in this design. Then just add your little folds around the pits, not anything too complex. And then I like to add some little wrinkles and stuff, kind of right where the bubba starts coming away from her actual flat portion of her chest. And then I went ahead and add in the shoulder seams. I think I moved that one on the right side of the screen inside a bit because it seems a little bit wide, but at least for right now, yeah, there we go. Never mind. Okay, whatever. I am misremembering what I'm doing here, but anyways, I would want that moved in a little bit, and I'm very certain I move it in before the thing is done. But anyways, yeah, right there. Has to be. There we go. I was gonna say, it's obviously not even close to symmetrical, so there we go. Anyways, add in your seams. And then again, just adding in some little materials here. The office shirt here is pretty tight where it's just kind of flush against her body. Now in little places like the crook of her arm here and where it folds into the wrist portion down here, parts where it's tucked in and stuff like that, it'll bunch up and fold up and stuff. So we'll have plenty of folds there in the pit, in the crease of her arm, down there at the wrist area. But other than that, I mean, the rest of it, you want to keep it relatively flush to the skin. So I'm not going to overdo wrinkles like on the shoulders and around the chest, stuff like that. And then basically just going to repeat that over on the other side. But because this arm is actually bent, I'm going to really increase the folds there in the crook of her arm. Just go ahead and kind of mimic that, add lots of folds there in the crease, and then again, just kind of tucking it into the wrist area here. All right, and then now I'm just drawing in the waistband, which we'll barely see on this character. And then I want to give nice sort of triangular ridges. Because if she was looking straight up at us, you might not see those because they're tucked in nice and flush to the skirt. But because she's leaned forward, you're actually going to see the shirt is just slightly, coming above where the waistline is. So add little ridges there, it'll be nice. And then for the skirt, super simple. Just keep it tight, add in your little creases. I kept it relatively short. You can make it as long as you want, no big deal. Adding a seam here on the side, and then just tracing in just sketching in my little portions where I want my clothing folds to be. And then kind of following around where her actual waist is. Here is the completed sketch. This type of a figure has a lot more details going on in it, but a lot of these details are going to be added during the actual rendering portion. I'm really just using the sketch to help me visualize where every fold's going to be. This is really just following the same sort of guides as the past examples, so just make sure you get your folds in. Keep the areas that are real close to the skin, just use the figure for those. And really the only difference with this type of an outfit is making sure that you don't neglect all of your seams. So make sure you've got designated seams around the collar, the shoulders, across the chest, areas like that. All right, so time to review. Now, the key thing when it comes to making these pictures is if you are planning on coloring and rendering the picture, then I would really recommend not overdoing the fold detail with the line art portion. Obviously on this piece around the chest area, I have plenty of folds with that just to give a contrast. But if you notice down around her waist, where the material is super loose and baggy and really folding over itself, I really only have outlined some of the folds. And the reason is because once I actually get into the rendering portion, that is where I'll use shading and stuff like that to give it the folded look, and it will keep the material looking soft. So a real big key thing when it comes to drawing some of these clothes is, unless you're using a firm, rigid material, I'd really recommend making the fold details in the rendering portion of the piece, because then you can keep the material looking really soft. Really, the key takeaway here is just notice that we sketch all of the folds so we kind of know what's going on. We know how the material's laying. But in the line art, really only giving the little bumps around on the thighs where it's going to go, giving the little outer edges of the folds on the shirt, and I'm leaving the rest for a later step. For gym outfit, it's kind of following the same principle. So again, notice how on the form-fitting portions like the thighs, I really don't have much detail added. It's just some little bumps where some of the folds will be. On the chest, I still went ahead and added a bunch of lines there. Technically, if you really wanted to, you could just erase that sort of center boob line and all of the fold detail, and you could do all of that in the rendering portion, and I think it'd probably look better, to be honest. For the sake of the line art tutorial, I have that in there. I do like using more lines in the details for the folds in the thicker sweatshirt. Again, I'm not overusing them. I'm not detailing the entire fold, but because this is a thicker, more dexterous material, I don't want it to look super ultra soft and puffy. I want it to look like it has a little body, it has some weight. And so because of that, I like using more line art to detail a little bit more of the folds. And then obviously in the finished piece, there'll be a lot more detail added with the actual rendering. But this will help keep the sweatshirt looking a bit more rigid, a bit thicker, a bit less like loose and flowy. Finally, for our office outfit, for this type of shirt, notice that I really only have some slight outlines for where her bra will be and the straps from the bra. You don't want to overuse the details there. Obviously, if her shirt is tight and, like I mentioned before, it's going to be semi-transparent. So because of that, I want to have some outlines just to show that it's there. Again, just giving details around the edges for where my folds will actually be. There'll be a ton of fold details on this one, like around the bends of the arms and down at the wrist. Make sure that when you're drawing the thighs, she's got a tight skirt on, so make sure that the you know, soft thigh is kind of spilling out over where the skirt is. It just makes sure there's a little bump there. There's a long video today. I hope to make some more videos like this. Please, you know, let me know if this was even helpful, if you want to see more outfits, if you like the longer videos, you know, just give me feedback. I'm happy to make adjustments. In a later video, I will show the coloring and rendering process. Hopefully then you can kind of see the vision with all the folds. But for now, when it comes to the line art, I'm pretty happy with this. Hopefully you found it helpful. Without further ado, hope to see you in the next one. Peace.